It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This is the Dr. Duke Show. We got a great show for you today, so hit that share button. It really helps us a lot to get the name recognition out there. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. Many of you know that MyPillow was booted out from most of the big box stores simply for supporting Donald Trump, but their loss is your gain. With the holiday season upon us, MyPillow is offering the classic MyPillow just for $20. $20 when you use the access code Dr. Duke, that's DRDUKE, and you can save almost 66% on any other store, most items in the store when you do visit mypillow.com. So check them out. Again, use that access code Dr. Duke, DRDUKE, and save a bundle. And remember, for the month of November and the first 2 weeks of December, anything you buy from any of our sponsors, all the money that comes to us goes into a great big pot for tuition assistance for underprivileged kids to attend FreedomProject Academy. See, we're an online school. We can't really have our kids selling candy bars or wrapping paper. Every time you make a purchase between now and the middle of December from one of our sponsors, all that money goes to help kids in need. So please, please, please support us that way. Today we start with staffing shortage, surprise, 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 across the country, as many public schools are now being forced to cancel classes, rethink hot lunch programs, and even provide extended weekends due to being short-staffed on Fridays. And why this should surprise anything, we've got boats stacked up in the harbors on the West Coast. No one's emptying them. Everything else is drying up. We've got, as we'll see today, the most expensive Thanksgiving in American history staring us in the face, and you've got a completely contentious, dysfunctional American public school system where good teachers have been driven out. The young teachers that have been, the number of teachers that have been entering college programs are way down. You've chased away the best and the brightest with all of your heavy arsenal of radical leftist policies. Many of the best teachers have retired early. Why are you surprised at the little least bit that now you're experiencing shortages too?
Well, in this, I mean, that's like the long game of what's been happening. But the short game is with COVID-19 and everything else. And now teachers are just exhausted, is what we're being told as to why we're having all of these staff shortages. Well, the teachers, they're just too exhausted to come in, I guess. That's according to Amy Baca-Oler, who's the president of the Colorado Education Association. She said, there's an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. And so what's happening, and this was already happening back by Veterans Day when you're talking about having Fridays off, there are a lot of school districts in at least 5 states, according to Fox News, where they extended, like, let's just have a long weekend, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. It was Veterans Day on Thursday, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Let's just take a 4-day weekend out of it. It's been tough. And I guess mom and dad, you'd have to, email us, let us know if in your area, has your school taken these long weekends? Are they saying, oh, well, if we're kind of short-staffed anyway, well, we'll just take that Friday off? Or has it been because of COVID protocols? Has your school shut down? It's what parents are seeing is what they saw in 2020 at the beginning of are we shutting school down? Are we going remote? Are we staying open? What are we doing? It's now happening again. So when you talk about who's exhausted, I'm going to go with the parents are exhausted. And
the rest of the country is exhausted with all of this public school drama. I mean, and what colossal arrogant entitlement do you have that because you're short-staffed, you're just telling kids to stay home, you are just magically extending weekends? Don't you think that parents who are trying to make ends meet, parents where you have a mom and dad working, can't just respond as easily as you? And why is it you have this unusual perk that you can decide everybody's so tired? I realize this is the short game, but I don't believe it for 1 second. I mean, I will say this. Now that COVID protocols are more or less winding down, this is not the same. I teach at the universities. It's not the same. The kids their heads are not there. They're huge sweeping absences across campus. I think this is true about colleges all across the country, and I think it's true in the public schools as well. This climate changing COVID situation has, in the same way that Americans' attitude towards work has changed, and not for the better. We had 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs this summer, get on the unemployment rolls, when there are 10 million jobs going unfilled. I'm seeing this at the college campus as well. I think this is a much bigger reason why there are staffing shortages at your public schools and more public schools across the country. It's because we have we reacted completely wrong about COVID, and we're still wrong about it. Stop everybody's life, make everybody feel like they're going to die. Rampant victimhood, right? All of this completely getting away from normal. What happened to the days when we as Americans, or we just as human beings, would put our heads down and plow through even the worst kinds of systemic problems, war and disease and catastrophes? What made us so all of a sudden craven, besides those progressive overlords who think they know best what to do? Well, this is a problem, shortages in staffing in the public schools, that is laid right at the feet of progressive educrats because of their timid, cowardly, and quite frankly, lazy and selfish approach to education over the last year and a half.
Well, and what you were saying too, I mean, at the college level, if a professor just decides, oh, I don't feel like teaching today, you just cancel class. And,
That's right.
And what happens, the students don't have as much impact. But when you're talking about K-12, specifically K-7, I would say, and you just, I'm a teacher, I'm not coming in today, and then all of a sudden everyone else decided to do the same thing, I'm just not going to come in either, then you have issues because now
right.
You have to cancel the class, you cancel school altogether, and now how many parents are looking to their own job that they have to then call in and say, I mean, this has been happening. We know, you all know, this has been happening for a year and a half, 2 years at this. I mean, we're getting close to 2 years before hopefully this will end here. But back to the point of what the Colorado Association president, Amy Baca-Oler, says, she's saying that the reality is that these districts just don't feel they have any other options than canceling school for the day. This should serve as a wake-up call that we need to do better by our students and our public schools. I would say we need to do better by our students and our parents.
Well, it's always the
Our
parents that
public
get
schools.
neglected, right? We have more data from Education Week cited by Fox News, which showed that 25% of school officials considered their staffing situation severe, 1 in 4, with another 15% who consider them very severe. Another 18% said their shortages were either mild or very mild, and just 5% said they did not have a staffing issue. One school district in Maryland is short 161 teachers. How can one district be short that many teachers and more than 100 teaching aides? That's 261 people. That must be a very, very big school district to be able to function with that. And I go back to what I said before. This is it's an attitudinal problem. The entire orientation of America today is that victimhood is what sells, that victimhood is what makes you moral. If you're a victim of something, you're a hero. And the problem with making victims heroes is that you are underlining the idea that the best way to be morally good and to be heroic and to be admired is to be helpless and trapped and victimized. This doesn't work well for anybody, and it's caught up with the public schools.
Are you a fan of the show? Consider joining the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation of $99 a year keeps us going. Simply visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us to pledge your support and receive our signature tumbler as a token of our appreciation. We've got much more to come. Stay with us.
Let's do a little causation, correlation, what will you have it, by stats class. Something simple to consider. If you inflate grades, graduation rates will also increase. And we have a new study coming out of Brigham Young University, the University of Illinois, and Stanford. So it must have been a couple professors know each other and decided to get together for a study at their various institutions. They found that a widespread grade inflation is leading to higher graduation rates. Wow. But they had to take a study to do it, to really nail it down and make sure this was factual. Researchers found that according to 4 data sources that date back as far as 1988, grade point averages and graduation rates have risen significantly compared to other measures of learning, such as test scores. So it doesn't mean our kids are getting any smarter when we say, well, we churned out this many more graduates this year. Nope. Here's what they found. They examined data from a longitudinal studies, various ones, of students who were in 8th grade in 1988. All right, were you in 8th grade in 1988? Anybody? Maybe were you a participant? And then they took a look at students who were in 10th grade in 2002. Hey! I was not a part of the study, but hey, I could have been. They found that 11% more first-year college students have a GPA above a 2.0 in the 2002 sample compared to the 1988 sample. And again, you're saying to yourself, well, obviously because kids got smarter, so their GPA is higher.
Said nobody anywhere.
The researchers accounted for other possible factors that may have influenced the increase in their average GPA. They took a look at parents' level of income, education, race, gender, and math scores, and they found none, nada, zip, zilch, and nothing. With the change, being the GPA.
So the kids aren't smarter kids.
Correct.
Their GPAs are significantly higher, but they
How
don't
can that
know.
be?
But they don't know anything more. I can tell you. This goes back to the first story. It deals with progressive educrats. We talked about that at the high school with the shortages. Now let's talk about it about the universities. We've been telling you for a long time now at the Dr. Duke Show that you should pay attention. The word diversity has lost its cachet. It's not the mantra that you think it's been for the last 20 years. Now the word diversity has been replaced with the word inclusion. The only way, according to the progressive left who runs education, the only way you can be not racist is to include everybody in all things every time. In fact, that's what they say. And while you're including everybody, you're excluding white people. I know that's how the left defines inclusion. Everybody gets to do everything all the time, with the exception of white people who you're allowed to discriminate. But what that means is you're bringing to college minority students, primarily not only, but primarily minority students from inner cities, like here in Wisconsin. We're bringing kids up from Milwaukee who are incapable of doing the work. They are not college kids. For whatever reason, they don't have those skills. And so to not include them is racist. So we bring them to campus. And very often we give them all sorts of help. We give them free breaks on tuition. We give them scholarships, not for knowledge anymore, but for diversity. We give them oftentimes free books from the bookstore. We do all kinds of things to make these kids who shouldn't be here to begin with, because they can't do college level work, feel included. And here's the problem. Once you bring them here, and you bring them here under the idea that we have to include non-college ready kids or else we're being exclusionary, once you bring them, you can't fail them. Because that would be even more exclusionary. Once you bring a bunch of kids who don't belong and can't do the work, then you have to give them grades to pass. Because you're not going to get them to do the work, you're not going to get them caught up, and most of them wouldn't be here for that reason. So you got to give them the grades. The grades themselves are the inclusivity. You may not be ready for college, you may not be equipped to do it, you may not have the background for it, but we brought you here in the name of inclusion. That means we have to give you the same grades, and eventually that means we must give you the same diploma.
Well, and then on top of it, when the researchers were asked, why are they doing this inflation too? They said it's government incentives. So if you have schools and the departments, and they're being faced with all this scrutiny, as they're saying, and then if you have enough kids, then that leads to funding. So the more kids you churn out, the more funding you get. So of course they're going to inflate the grades. So then it leads to more graduation. And that's what they're saying basically is happening. They said, and in fact, graduation rates increase sharply at public four-year schools and community colleges, which rely on tax dollars and can be affected by states' performance-based funding rules. So there you go. Welcome to college.
Today's show is sponsored by Clean Start Hand Sanitizer. For an odor-free foam hand sanitizer that lasts 2 hours and provides 19 refills, visit freedomproject.com/clean. That's KLEEN to order yours today.
It's that time of year. The time when we sit down to a Thanksgiving dinner, have a little turkey, maybe watch some football, hopefully don't talk politics, because meh. But maybe at your household this year, you're paring back a little bit because you took a look at how much a turkey costs this year compared to pretty much any other year in history, and you're like, no thank you. Well, we had our friends, our good friends there at Campus Reform doing their due diligence as they always do, and they decided to go ask some students about Turkey Day, and oh my gosh, students were stunned by how much turkey is costing this year and, the stuffing and all the other good sides. And wait, it was actually better under President Trump?
Did you just have a case of Trump Tourette's?
Better? No, I'm not allowed to say it. That's
and
why.
The irony is that how many of these kids are actually paying for the turkey? I mean,
are you paying for your own turkey this year? Are you?
I'm an apostate. I've told you this before. I am the one American who does not like almost any aspect of Thanksgiving dinner. I'm not much into turkey. I don't like cranberries. I don't like broccoli salad. I don't like those stupid little green
vegetables. They're called vegetables.
Yeah,
green things.
Me.
Vegetables.
Oh, I love certain kinds of vegetables. Just it's not my thing. I despise pumpkin pie.
Well, it's not called pumpkin pie.
Yeah, it is.
Pumpkin pie.
No, it's not real. It's not real pumpkin. It's
anyway,
it's that fake pumpkin stuff.
No, you get real 100% pure pumpkin. Let's have a debate, Mom and Dad. Give me pumpkin.
Give me a fillet and some apple pie, and I'll be a happy camper. And so for me, this is an excuse. My wife does kind of get into so this is my way of having an excuse for not. It's too expensive.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So let's get back to the story. Campus Forum. It was Addison Smith this time. So Addison Smith tends to go to Georgetown area. And so he was out on the sidewalks and he was asking students about the cost of Thanksgiving dinner.
Last year's Thanksgiving was reportedly the cheapest in over 3 decades. And already this year, a year later, there's reports out that this could be the most expensive Thanksgiving in American history.
Wow, I had no idea, and I'm curious why that would be.
So when your family goes shopping for Thanksgiving this year, you can expect to pay 22% more for a turkey. You can pay 12% more for meats, poultry, fish, eggs, all those things.
Why is that?
Nearly 5% more for each spice and seasoning you buy, and nearly 8% more for salad dressings, 3% more for bakery items. Does that surprise you at all?
That definitely surprises me, yes.
Okay, so you're also gonna pay 50% more in gas than you would have last year.
Yeah, that's a little frustrating too as well, isn't it?
Do you think that with the Biden administration passing all these exorbitant spending bills, printing a lot more money, do you think that that's what's causing all of this inflation?
Definitely, yeah. I do think they're correlated because they usually are in the past and history, that if you're passing more bills and you're increasing, it does increase inflation, yeah.
So you think he does bear some responsibility?
Yes.
If you were to, hone in on just this particular moment and all those Thanksgiving stats, I would say obviously, yeah.
If it's true that, there's a dramatic rise in inflation and it's only been in the last year since Biden's administration has been here, I would say yes.
I don't know how, after God knows how many times, countries have thought that was the solution. We're going to figure out that's not the solution. You can't just print more money because you feel like spending more money.
So here you are at Georgetown, and that last kid who got it 100% correct, he had an SMU shirt on, a Southern school. I wonder if he actually goes to SMU, because the Georgetown kids seem pretty clueless. And over and above what we can say about this particular holiday problem and the inflation, over all of these campus reform videos, the thing that is so depressing about them is it's absolutely clear when you listen to these kids. These are college level kids. They don't pay the least bit of attention to what's going on in the country. I mean, the huge $1 trillion boondoggle that just got passed by the House. It's clearly these kids have no idea about any of this stuff.
Well, it's not just these kids. I mean, across the country.
Well,
period.
But wouldn't you think theoretically, the higher your education level, the more interested you'd be in current affairs? Look, put it this way. College kids, for all of their lack of interest, sure have some pretty damn heavy opinions, don't they?
Well, yes, they do.
They go to college now not to get knowledge, but to get opinions. And they can't be bothered to even check and see if the statistics or the facts or what's going on in Washington, D.C. They live in Washington, D.C. They can't even be bothered to be aware of what's actually happened and who's telling the truth.
Well, sometimes when you're the closest to it, you're actually the
farthest
away from it.
If you're going to Georgetown, the odds are you're not poor. That's talking, $80,000, $90,000 a year if you factor in trying to live in Washington, D.C. It's a hugely private, snooty, expensive college. And we know that most of those Georgetown kids aren't working 2 jobs to stay there. So mom and dad must be having it pretty good. That noise tells you it's time for some real education, a chance to divert ourselves from all the politics and the madness of modern education and to study actually great works of art. Boy, what a concept. Let's study the best that's ever been thought and said instead of turning everything into political nonsense. But our play for the week is The Duchess of Malfi. I think it is it's hard for a modern audience to just pick it up and read it. It's not the easiest in the world, but it's worth your time if you want to go slow. It's a brilliant play by John Webster. It's a tragedy. And just to give you a reminder, this is John Webster. We know almost nothing about him. He is one of the great playwrights of the Jacobean period. His White Devil is a work of art as well as The Duchess of Malfi. We have so little information about him, which kind of ratchets up our curiosity about him, because his imagination, his vision in his tragedies is so dark. The image of human nature is almost irredeemable. I don't know if any of you ever watched the movie Shakespeare in Love. We're talking, 25 years ago now, won the Academy Award. In that movie, which I didn't think was all that good, to tell you the truth, in that movie, which won Best Picture, there's a little boy, when Shakespeare's doing his business, there's a little boy that hangs around the theater, and he's torturing rats. That little boy was John Webster, was going to grow up to be John Webster of the really, really, really dark vision of human nature. So take a look at our quote from today. He's talking about, again, this is one of the villains of the play. Bosila is his name, and he's lamenting. He's talking out loud, thinking out loud about what is there in the outward form of a man to be beloved. What is there about our figure, our nature, our body? What is it about the human body that we spend so much time slaving over it? We exercise the body, we sleep the body, we feed the body, we have all these bodily ablutions. How much of our everyday time is spent on this human body that with every year goes by, dies a little more, gets closer to the grave? And how little time, by comparison, do we spend on the immortality that is our soul? So his reflection here is, what sort of a thing is in this outward form of a man to be beloved? Do we not account it ominous if nature do produce a colt or a lamb or a fawn or a goat in any limb resembling a man, and fly from it as it were a prodigy? Man stands amazed to see his own deformity in any other creature but itself. What a great point. You see a two-headed calf or a goat, a baby goat that has one of its hooves look like a human foot. This is a sinister thing, right? We see that and we consider it a prodigy or a bad omen. Maybe it's just what Bosila says. Maybe man stands amazed to see his own physical deformities in any other creature but himself.
All right, before we go, let's show some love to our Patriot Club members. And today, we'd like to give a special little shout out to William from Lansing, Michigan. William, thank you for supporting us. And that wraps up this show for Freedom Project. I'm Katie. He's Dr. Duke.
Until next time, stay educated, my friends, and have an expensive, albeit happy, Thanksgiving.